Some moments in life feel so distant, almost like they belong to someone else's story. You hear about them, maybe you even see them in movies, and in your mind you convince yourself, that happens to other people, not to me. But life, as it often does, has a way of shattering our assumptions. A few years ago, something happened that I could never have predicted, a moment that marked a turning point in my life. It all started at a farm, a place that held so many memories for me. It became the moment everything changed. But let me rewind a little to give you some background. My name is Ava. I'm 55 years old, and I'm still living with the heartache of losing my husband, James. He was my world, the love of my life. His absence still gnaws at me daily, but somehow life pushes you forward, even when you feel stuck. Thankfully, I have my daughter, Mia. Mia is my anchor. She's 33 years old now, smart, beautiful, and driven. Mia has built her own successful career as an engineer, and I couldn't be prouder of her. Then there's her husband, Wesley. He's 40, handsome, and as calm as they come. He's a great guy, and I've always respected him. After 5 years of marriage to Mia, I had no reason to doubt him, until something changed. This whole thing started a few weeks ago, and trust me, you'll want to hear the rest. But first, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. This is just one of the many fascinating real-life stories I share on here. Watch till the end. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. It all began when I decided to spend some time at our old farmhouse. This wasn't just any piece of property. It was a place filled with childhood memories. It had fallen into neglect over the years, especially after James passed, but it was still a place I cherished. So I thought it would be a good idea to fix it up. I invited Mia and Wesley to come with me. A little vacation, some work, and a chance for us to spend quality time together. The weekend started out just like any other, and everything seemed fine. When Mia and Wesley arrived at the farmhouse, they were their usual cheerful selves. Wesley, always ready to lend a hand, was no different that day. But within those quiet walls of the old farmhouse, something shifted in a way I never expected. You know how sometimes you feel something off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. A glance that lasts too long, an awkward silence, or a subtle change in the air. That's how it started with Wesley. It was subtle, but I felt it. Maybe I was just overthinking it. After all, I'd been on my own for a while, and my loneliness could sometimes play tricks on me. But no, I wasn't wrong. My instincts were telling me something was off. That weekend, things between Wesley and me began to shift in a way I could never have predicted. What should have been a simple family weekend became something else entirely. I can't explain it all, but I'll do my best. It started with something simple. I was inside the house, wiping down the old bookshelf that had gathered dust over the years. Meanwhile, Mia was outside, working on the old chairs, sanding them down. Every now and then she'd call out to Wesley with a question, and he'd respond with short answers and move on. Nothing strange there, right? Then Wesley came inside. He stood at the doorway, hands in his pockets, a smile on his face. "You really getting into this, Ava?" he asked. "Someone has to," I said, shrugging as I placed a dusty old book back on the shelf. But then something changed. I needed to reach the top shelf, and so I grabbed a ladder and propped it up. I was trying to focus on cleaning the top shelf when I felt Wesley's presence behind me. I could sense him watching me, and something about it made me uncomfortable. He stood there, his hands resting on the ladder as though guarding it. "Let me hold the ladder, make sure it's safe," he said. "There's no need," I responded, trying to brush it off. But by then he was already there, holding it as if it was something crucial. The situation felt off, but I couldn't quite explain why. When I finally finished cleaning and began to climb down, Wesley's eyes followed my every movement. I stepped down the last few steps, and we were face to face. "You did a great job," he said, his voice lower than usual. There was something in his eyes, an intensity I hadn't noticed before. I laughed nervously, trying to downplay it, but I couldn't ignore the way his gaze seemed to pierce through me. It was unsettling, and yet, at the same time, there was an undeniable feeling inside me that I couldn't control. Just then, Mia called from the porch. "Mom, Wesley, I made tea. Let's take a break." And suddenly, the tension broke. I hurriedly cleaned my hands and tried to forget what had just happened, but I couldn't. There was something stirring inside me, a feeling I didn't want to acknowledge, but that I couldn't ignore. Later, when I was inside preparing the tea, Wesley came to the kitchen door. "Let me help," he said, walking toward me. "I've got it under control," I replied, but he was already standing close, his voice softer than usual. "You make the tea just right," he said casually. His words were a little too intimate for my liking. He was standing so close, his arm brushing mine. I stepped back, trying to focus on the task at hand, but he seemed to follow me. At one point, as I tried to turn, we almost collided. "Careful," he said, his voice different now. I couldn't help but feel a strange warmth wash over me as his hands steadied me. His gaze never left mine, and I could feel my heart racing in a way I didn't understand. I quickly tried to pull away, but the air between us had changed. It felt like something was about to happen, and yet Mia's voice from the other room snapped me out of the moment. "Is the tea ready, Mom?" she called. I grabbed the tray and tried to compose myself. Mia came in, oblivious to the tension in the air. But for me, everything had shifted. The next day, when Mia was off to the city to get new flowers for the garden, the farmhouse fell silent. Wesley offered to stay behind and help me. I was by the fireplace, lost in thought as I arranged some firewood. Suddenly, I heard Wesley's voice behind me. "You know, as beautiful as this farm is, you're just as beautiful," he said. His words hit me like a wave. My heart skipped a beat and I froze. "Wesley," I said, trying to hide my nervousness, but he didn't back off. He stepped closer, his voice soft but intense. "I don't think you even realize it," he said, his gaze never leaving me. And just like that, everything changed. I felt him pull me toward him, and for a moment, I was lost in the moment. Everything slowed down. It was as if time had stopped, and all that mattered was Wesley's touch. By the time we reached the couch, things had escalated quickly, but after everything, I couldn't shake the guilt. I'm not proud of what happened. It was wrong. But now, every time I close my eyes, I feel the weight of it. And I know it's only a matter of time before Mia finds out.